In the Bookshelf with me, Ryan Tubridy, is brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. And Eason have a rich heritage of book selling since 1886. It's probably where you got your first ever book, or maybe your last one, and hopefully your next one after you listen to this episode of our podcast. So stay listening for Ryan Recommends, of course, my weekly recommendation, where I'll discuss a book I've read recently that I think you'll really enjoy too. And make sure to browse your local Eason store for your next book, or explore hundreds of thousands of titles online at easons.com. Order before 6 p.m. for same-day dispatch and enjoy free delivery when you spend over a tenner. Whether you're after the latest bestseller, a hidden gem, or a classic read, Eason has you covered. Eason, be inspired. Today on the Bookshelf, we're joined by one of Ireland's most innovative entrepreneurs. She's Aimee Connolly, known as the founder of the renowned beauty brand Sculpted by Aimee. She's become a trailblazer in the beauty industry. In fact, so much so that when I mentioned her name to anyone today that I was going to be talking to her, there was a lot of eyebrows raised of joy going, I have all her stuff. Is she bringing you free stuff? I said, I don't want free stuff. I want to talk to her about books in her life. And today we're going to dive into her life story a little deeper. Is she a reader? What does she read? Why does she read it? And what made her the entrepreneur that she is today? This is Aimee Connolly on the Bookshelf. Welcome, Aimee. Nice to see you.
Thank you. What a lovely intro. Well, I won't fit my head out the door.
No. I mean, that's the Irish thing, isn't it? You have to be careful of too much praise. I think that reaction that I got from people to say, when I said that I was interviewing today, all women as it happens, and all vintages, okay. you seem to have this effect, the Aimee effect. What's happening?
I think firstly, we as Irish are so supportive of our own. And I think, we're 8 years in business now. So we've had a long journey of growing Sculpted here. So people have kind of uncovered product by product. And also beauty has that impact on people, where I used to joke during the pandemic, like, we're not solving lives, we're not fixing hearts. But if we can give you a bit of a pep in your step and a bit of a boost, you create quite a connection with that. So we're very, very lucky to have that with lots of people.
It's great. I'm so proud that, as an Irish man, that there's this amazing Irish entrepreneur who's now traipsing around Carnaby Street and Soho, all the very funky spots in London.
Very funky.
Flogging your wares in the best possible way. So it's just getting bigger and more global and more international. Is that exciting or terrifying?
I would say both. Yeah, I think ultimately it's really exciting. Like, I think I constantly repeat to the team that being busy is a privilege. So, if we weren't feeling a bit of nerves, a bit of stress, you'd be conscious that we actually just weren't moving. So I think, there's so much ahead, which I think is so exciting. But then if you thought about it for too long, that's where it goes, oh God, there is so much to do. But yeah.
I was reading a piece in the paper the other day that said, because Bridget Jones is being rebooted, this Gen Z journalist wrote this article, and she said, the reason we like Bridget Jones, even though we were barely born or weren't born when it came out the first time, is because she goes makeup free, she doesn't care, and we love that, the lack of pressure, because it's become too pressurized online to have to wear makeup all the time, or wear lots of, or whatever. I don't really know. You're laughing, going, this man's a fool.
No, you're explaining perfectly.
Am I making it sense?
Yes.
Okay, and they're saying they're kind of bringing it back to kind of basics. Where does that make sense, what she's saying about
Totally.
that the pressure to wear makeup and to be on?
I think it's twofold. I think the physical level of makeup that people used to wear years ago, say like in the last decade, has massively transformed and reduced. I think the little pause point that we all had with the pandemic was a big driver of actually wearing less. But I think also the pressure is a real thing. I think social media does that. But I think nowadays, and again, much kudos to Gen Z and the Gen Alphas even below them, there's a real confidence in going bare or wearing less or using like small amounts of the right product rather than layering and layering and layering. I think as a brand, we've always sat in that field. Like, we were always filter-free faces, even when it wasn't the norm to not wear tons of makeup. And at the end of the day, it's however you want to wear it so that you feel good.
Yes.
But yeah, pressure is real in an online world, I think.
I just worry sometimes about, when you see these 9-year-olds, this story, I'm going to ask you about that. The 9 and 10-year-olds going, I just want to get foundation. You're going, What?
I know.
I mean, I'll talk to you about foundation of the state, but I'm not going to buy you some makeup. What the hell are you talking about? You're 9.
Because they're just absorbing content all of the time.
That's what it is. You're talking about online going, so this is, into
So
my haul.
They're doing their, I think the biggest thing for them actually outside of cosmetics is they're doing their skincare, get unready with me for my bedtime skincare routine.
What does that mean, what you just said?
So they're just basically like going into the camera and like applying products and saying, and now I'm doing this and now I'm doing that, because they're just mirroring YouTubers or TikTokers that they're watching.
Adult or grown up ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the one, I do think it's a peer-to-peer kind of generation that they're in, though, where they may not even necessarily be looking to the celebrity or influencer they're watching, and they're actually doing it with their pal who is, not necessarily known. It's just their friend online. The one silver lining, I think, within it all, though, because I'd always like to try find that, is they are so knowledgeable on how to look after your skin. So things like SPF, which is very important in the sun, they are going to be all over it.
Okay.
So it's the one good thought
So
that we can go to sleep with at night.
Good. Okay. Let's take the positive rather than all the slap they're putting on for no particular reason, costing their parents a fortune. I just went back in and got the cloud. I'm trading you the silver lining for the cloud.
Yeah.
Let's go back to you as young Aimee, as a kid. So where are you from in the world? And tell us about growing up a little bit.
So I grew up in Dublin my whole life. I lived in kind of Ballantyre, Dundrum area.
Yeah.
Went to school in Clotty.
Yeah. So you're Irish speaker, fluent Irish speaker.
Yeah, primary and secondary.
Great.
And then I studied in UCD Business and French, spent a year in France for that degree. And now my life is between Dublin, London for work, and then the odd sprinkle of New York or wherever, South Korea maybe, wherever life takes me.
Great. Okay, that sounds quite dramatic and fun. No, it does really. But we'll go back to the family home in some ways, and books essentially.
Yeah.
Were they there? Were they knocking around the place? Were they on the shelves? Were they peppered around the floor? What was the story?
Yeah, lots of bookshelves. I would say, so I come from a very small family. Myself and my mom lived together. She is a total bookworm and used to race through books.
Great.
So much like myself, like we'd be getting through quantity at a time. And although we had bookshelves, I would say our home was never like pristine. So it was kind of just like stacks of books in the corner of the floor sometimes, or that odd random pot that everything would find its way into, like a remote control, a battery, a book, or a car key. It was all in there. But yeah, books were definitely around.
What type of books? Sorry, was it a particular genre or was it just everything?
Mum loves crime and thriller.
Great.
Much like myself.
We're all friends now.
Yeah, like to the point, I think if someone was to look at the archives of books I read, they'd be like, is she okay? Because everything is about abduction or death or something.
That's your escapism.
Yeah.
Which is also troubling.
Which is a lovely, lovely thought to have. However, I do have a soft spot for fantasy.
Oh.
And I grew up with that as a kid.
Tell me about that. Because is this anything to do with romantasy, which is all the rage at the moment?
Doesn't necessarily have to be.
Fantasy being
like Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was my first absolute love of a book series.
Lovely. Good
that
choice.
I really remember. Like I was so into it that I was like the kid at midnight queuing outside Eason's.
Oh, they are my favourite nerds in the whole world. The enthusiasm, the passion, the excitement.
I know. And it was so magic, like literally magic.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like, because they were really big books as well. So it was my first kind of big task of a book. Because when you're kind of going through school, you might have the smaller kind of little editions of stories. This was like the big chunky, big language.
What were they doing for you? Because they are big plots. They were epic stories. There's multi-characters. I mean, they're fascinating. Where do they bring you?
Like genuinely you would just lose time.
Yeah.
Like you would just be so, because I was also, as an only child, I think quite someone that you had to keep entertained. I'm actually still like that to this day. Like I can't sit still. I drive everyone mad until I have a book. So my husband breathes a sigh of relief on holidays because great, she has a book.
Is it like giving a biscuit to a dog?
Literally, yeah.
That's great.
So you'd have to be doing stuff all the time. So the books were amazing to not only pass time and keep you entertained, but particularly the really like plotted stories like Harry Potter. You just totally envision the world. And then the movies came along.
Yeah.
So obviously they kind of literally portrayed what you were reading. And I remember there was a few moments where I was like, oh my God, I didn't imagine the character like that. Or I didn't think they'd speak like that. But yeah, pretty magic. Had every single edition.
Were you a happy child?
Yeah, totally happy.
Even on your own?
Yeah, we had the best time. Like, Mom is a force to be reckoned with.
What was she doing for a living, or was she?
So she was working in pharmaceuticals. So she was a busy working mom. So
Yeah.
in fairness to her, like, she totally did both. I don't really know how. We had a great support network around us of like childminders and stuff as well to help her. But she was in pharmaceuticals. She then took a career break in her 40s, did a property study degree, and opened her own property company, as you do.
Yeah, I'm beginning to build a genetic picture here of entrepreneurial.
When people do ask me where'd you get it from, I'm like, oh, it must have been.
Now that I think of it, she just did a course and then opened a whole new career in her 40s. It might have been her.
So I remember when I was studying for my leaving cert, she was studying for the final exams within her property exams.
Yeah,
the two of us are like stressed out at the table together. So yeah, definitely get my love of books, my speed of books from her. The whole notion of crime and thrillers definitely got passed down from her also.
I love that. You'll never be bored because so many of them. It's great. Can I ask you about your father, if you don't mind? Where does he fit into the picture?
So he was just never really in the picture. He is someone that I've met a handful of times. I actually don't really talk about it because I find in this kind of world that we're living in, sometimes people like to sensationalize a story. There is no story.
There is no story. No. Your folks separated quite early.
Really early. Like I said, met him a handful of times up until I was maybe about 17, which sounds like it was a bigger relationship than what it was. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
And I never knew him. He wasn't really part of my life.
Yeah.
I didn't feel even like at a loss without him. You know, when you just actually don't know something with someone, so there's nothing to miss necessarily. And I've watched friends go through like separations, divorces, you name it, and that's awful. Whereas when you actually don't know what it is, it's not a negative.
I'm trying to figure out why he didn't pursue a relationship with his daughter. I'm trying to figure it out as a father of two daughters.
I know.
And I don't mean this as a judgment at all, because who knows what's going on in people's lives?
Yeah.
No one knows. Yeah. I certainly don't. Do you think about that, or does it bother you at all, or do you just...
So he had kids from a previous marriage before Mom. So in fairness, he probably was fulfilling his father role with them. I think it's challenging. I can't even comment enough as an adult because, again, I didn't really know his troubles, but I'm assuming there was a lot going on for you not to be able to do that. I think he probably also felt, this is total just thoughts in my own mind, that myself and Mom were very content and capable. So there probably wasn't a lot of pressure there from his side. And also, he didn't really know me. You know, I'm sure I'm not a parent yet, but I'm sure you have that instinct that like they are yours. But at the same time, he didn't really know me. So, I am very, very happy to have led a life without him.
Yeah.
Couldn't have asked genuinely for a better mom. She's absolutely insanely hilarious and good crack.
I'll ask one more last question about your father, which is, would you like to make peace with him, and you know, as we all get older, or are you done with that?
I think I wouldn't call it make peace. I think if I was to see him now, I'd have a very frank conversation. I think I'd feel confident. You know, you get to your 30s and you've lived a bit of your life and you've no problem having a very direct conversation. And it's funny, for someone who definitely wants people to like them, who would hate to have anything unresolved hanging over them. I'm definitely like that as a human. I don't feel that urge with him. I don't know if that I've just gone through so much of my life being like, well, do you know what? You kind of made your bed. That's absolutely fine. I don't know you enough to feel necessarily too sad about it. But I would definitely have a very frank conversation, and I would probably enjoy that. Yeah. Whether I'd feel the better of coming out of it, I don't know.
Maybe just to get it out there and say, we've had this, whatever comes from this, who knows. Yeah. But it sounds, your mum sounds like a pretty exceptional person. Not only in the fact that she pursued her academic studies, but also being a mum. And as you say, those childminders who pick up don't say pick up the pieces, because that sounds like there was a problem, but who help gel the situation together. You probably remember their one or two of them in particular. You remember the meals that they would have made for you.
Totally.
No one can make the potatoes like so-and-so. Am I speaking the language?
I used to have, particularly when I was like really young, like maybe 2 or 3, I used to have a bottle and she used to put sugar in it. And it used to be one of my childminders, her name was Orla. One of the most delicious, comforting things I ever remember.
Wow.
But it was also hard for Mom. I remember one time she was telling me that she dropped me off. And then I said, Mom, to the childminder. She's like, no, I'm over here. Don't do that to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But you know what? In school, the odd hand would go up and someone would go, Mum, the teacher responds, I'm not your mammy.
Yeah.
The rest of the class, you know, and they're gone. So look, let's just let that as that was a slip of some sort.
And I think it was a positive sign that I was so comfortable with them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've done this twice, if not 3 times in the course of this conversation. Finding the positive within the potential negative. Are you of a positive disposition, generally speaking? I mean, you're like a silver lining chaser almost.
Yeah, I would never have kind of put that in my name, but I suppose now that you pointed out, I do.
Well, you've done it a few times. It's
Yeah.
it's a charming thing to do. It's a real nice thing to do.
I think maybe from like, you know, what life throws at you, or maybe from just scaling a business, you just kind of, particularly when you're a people leader, people come to you with the issues and they're like, cool, so what's the solution? And sometimes you're going, oh God, I've never done this before. So you have to try and bluff your way through it, and maybe finding light is my way of bluffing.
How many people do you employ?
We have 97 on the team.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, it's real.
Tell me, what's it like to be an adult?
It's a lot. You get married, you build a team, all of a sudden you feel this pressure. No, do you know what? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I actually adore the team. We have the best crack together.
That must be so important. I mean, I've worked with teams down through the years, and the best teams are the ones you can laugh with. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, of course, there's teams you've worked with who are diligent but no crack.
Yeah.
The ones that you can just go, you can't say that or whatever, but you get the job done. Is that what you do you err on the side of joy, which is one of my favourite expressions? Try and do that at least.
100%. And I think, you know, it's hard in a high pressure startup environment. Like, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of pace, a lot of late nights. So you have to be able to find those moments of relief, whether it is, you know, laughing and you go to an awards and our events together and you'll have a couple of drinks, or whether we'll do a random workout class, or we do a run club, for example. Like, doing those moments I think is so important. And also, you spend so much of your life working with people.
Yes.
So if you don't like who you're working with,
that's right.
It's awful.
Yeah, I remember saying that as well. You should never feel like you're going to school when you're going to work, because they are too, you can't feel that. And if you do, there's something wrong.
However,
go on.
I loved school. I was a complete and utter nerd.
Welcome to the studio. You're among your own here in this safe space.
I used to accost my business teacher outside the class. My friends still slag me in my leaving cert year, and give him extra essays for fear he didn't cover the topics. He used to see me coming and go, I'm gone, out the door, goodbye.
It's funny because you always think teachers would go home and think about you and your essays. They were in the pub. Yeah. Roaring laughing.
Totally.
You know, but you're right. You have this image.
He's like, does your one think I'm going correcting any more for essays?
So you're very, very keen student, like to say that.
Do you know what? I think it's a bigger sign of me how I was through secondary and through my college course or college degree. I always had huge expectations on myself. Still do. Like, my mum wouldn't have even.
I was going to say, your mum doesn't strike me as being that type of person.
Not
You've
at
spoken
all.
about your father, so clearly you're putting this on yourself. Why, I wonder?
Maybe it comes from childhood of like making sure, I don't know, whether it's in a warped way you don't feel you're enough or making sure you are enough. I don't know what it is. I've never considered it like a negative thing, but I know it's in me. Like, if I didn't get all A's or a first in my degree or, you know, a successful business, like it's actually to no one else. It's all my own standards.
And you always, and did you get all those things you've just mentioned?
I did.
God, that was a very subtle flex, but I liked
God.
it. Tell me what you wanted to be when you were a kid. And I'm talking about, say, 12, 13, not like 7, 8, I want to be an astronaut, but like 12, 13, 14, like no.
Wasn't one of those.
But like that age group, did you have aspirations, ambitions?
I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to teach kids. I wouldn't say I was one of those kids who had like it all mapped out with like the nurse's outfit or anything like that. But, you know, if you'd asked me, I would have said a teacher. Up until I was about 14. And then I started working part-time. That led me into beauty. And I realised actually I'm going to go into business and work for myself. But then I loved beauty, so I wanted to mix the two together.
And there we are, hence the brand.
Yeah.
Did you do transition year? Was that where you got your first work placement? Okay.
That was transformational for me.
Let's talk about it. So for people who don't know what that TY transition year is, that gap in the fourth year in the middle of secondary school where some people think it's a waste of time, stop it, you know, just keep going and get your academic pursuits. Or people like me who think it's a lovely year to just pause, pursue books and things and work placements and just take it easy for a year, a little bit easier. And you did it. And you were sent to where for your work placement?
So I was very last minute, which is not like the scholarly child that I was, not being organised. So my mother was about to kill me. And she was working on the third floor of House Fraser at the time, which no longer exists, in the Dundrum Shopping Centre. So I very gratefully got 2 weeks work experience with Benefit Cosmetics on the counter.
Yeah.
So I was like this, bouncing for joy 15-year-old coming in going, hi, great, I can't wait to work here for 2 weeks. I love makeup. Didn't think I would be a makeup artist, but I was your classic girly girl. And I never forget the manager saying to me, now, you can't touch anyone's face. So you can just like stand here and like talk about the product and educate people. I'm going on my break and I'll be back in an hour.
You're 15.
The minute she goes, totally. Sandra, come in here now, sit down, I'll try the mascara on you.
Did you really?
And it was amazing. And it was the best
Were you
thing
touching
I ever
all the
did.
faces you could get
Of
your
course I
hands
did.
off?
Making loads of sales. I was like, come in there, it'll be gorgeous on you now. But it was the best thing that ever happened for my confidence, because
Great.
we had to do this thing called traffic stopping, which is horrendous.
What's that?
To anyone in retail. It's basically where you're standing at, in my case, a cosmetic stand, trying to sell a mascara. And you have to go find a customer who's shopping in lingerie, who doesn't actually, quite frankly, give a shite about the mascara at that time, and be like, hello there, do you want to come back to the counter with me and I'll try it on you?
God.
And I'll never forget the first woman I spoke to. I was so nervous with pent up, like actual vomit.
Yeah.
And I think just gibberish came out, and she felt so sorry for me that she came back and probably bought 2 of them, I think, because she was like, oh God, the poor pet. You
Well,
know?
that's so good.
But it was the best thing ever. So I did 2 weeks there, and then I was offered subsequently a part-time job with Urban Decay, because I think I sold a few bits.
You clearly did.
Yeah.
But you got bitten by the bug then, you said. Was it the selling, or was it the act of makeup, or the combination?
It was both. It wasn't necessarily the selling, it was the people connection.
Right.
Yeah, when I really think about it, it was like that buzz I got from dealing with someone or making them feel good was like electric to me.
Okay.
And then also the fascination of the consistencies and textures and stuff.
And all of that. We'll come to said the man. And all of that. What'd you
All
say?
that good stuff.
What is it? Consistency and textures?
Textures.
And stuff.
And stuff.
Okay. We'll come back to that in a minute, maybe. So here's this week's Ryan Recommends, brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. I'm going to go for what's possibly my book of the year so far. It's called Wellness by Nathan Hill. Now, a couple of things on this. One, the title, Wellness. Awful. Everyone thinks, I didn't really always into self-help. I'm not against self-help, but it's not necessarily my thing. So it's nothing to do with self-help. 2, the cover. Why did they let this cover through? It's so weak and mealy-mouthed. It's a shame, because the book is brilliant and is highly, highly recommended. It looks like an epic, but it's so well told that you just go through it really, really at a clip. So what it is about a couple essentially in America who have a baby and their lives seem to be going quite well, and then it unravels. Kind of like Tom Wolfe and Bonfire of the Vanities. It's that sort of story which brings you right back to their own stories and their parents' stories, and you suddenly realise intergeneration trauma. And so when people say, blame the parents, this book kind of brings it all into focus. It's a great book, loads in it, kept me occupied, entertained, passed all the tests, wanted to get to bed early, wanted to wake up early. This is a great book, highly recommended. Right, let's get back to the chat. I want to talk to you now about the book that brought you joy, the one that you pick up and think, oh, my old friend, or I laughed like a drain, or, it just brought you to a happy place. Tell me about that book.
So I think people might question me when I say what my happy book was.
I'll be the judge of that.
It's also potentially not that happy when you really dig into it. The first one that
The
came
D-Day
to
Landing is
mind.
by Max Hastings. No, go ahead. What do you got for me?
The first one that came to mind was About Time by Richard Curtis, which subsequently was made into a movie also.
With Donald Gleeson.
Yeah.
Tell us about the plot for that film.
So it's basically where
that book, excuse me.
His dad, well, both.
Yeah.
His dad tells him that he has a gift, the male in their families, to travel back in time. And they basically go through like all the general ordinary / life events that happen.
Yeah. Is this not the saddest film I ever saw?
So it's a little
What
bit
happens
sad.
then?
But you know what I loved, right? It was like the emphasis of being present in time and all the lovely family and love and that goes with it. But like if you were to look a bit deeper, okay, it's not the happiest. So don't question me too much. But I just got a lovely sense of comfort from it.
Why? What's the unhappy clause here?
They deal with a lot of like sickness and life negative events, I suppose.
And the question then is, of course, should you jump back in time, or should you just let things go as they were? I mean, you're into It's a Wonderful Life, you're into A Christmas Carol. This sort of
and he goes through
what can
all
you
of that.
change and how can you change, or should you change, or that's what it is.
And he realizes he can't. So he can go back in time and he can maybe live that event again, but he actually can't orchestrate or impact what's ahead. So you just have to let it be.
I'm trying to find the joy bit in this. I mean, the question is, what book brought you joy? So far, we've had sickness, inability to change bad things. Help me out here, Aimee.
So they have a gorgeous family and they love each other so much and they have all these lovely life moments despite the negatives.
Okay.
And at the end, they realise it's great to stay present and let it be. And they're very grateful for their life.
Okay, so a quack psychologist says, given what you said about your dad, are you seeing elements of your story going, this is what I would have loved to have had? Or is that a quack too far?
I would never say anything's a quack too far. I'm all for
having a look at
digging into things and so on. I wonder what that is. I also think being very self-critical is something I have done over the last decade from leading people. I think you have to actually like look at yourself and be like, did I deliver that in the right way? Did they pick up on that because I did this?
Mm-hmm.
Like I find actually that's one of the traits that I have really embedded into myself. So I would never be against digging deep and saying, I wonder, is that a reflection?
Do I like that book because of what happened to me when I was younger and what have you?
Yeah.
Are you harsh on yourself? It sounds like you might be a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Nothing I would say more so than how the average person is. I think the expectations are a lot. Yeah. And I think that that need to do well or I would say I'm harsh in the sense that things don't go well. Like I'm quite harsh on myself.
Do you bring it home?
Try not to. I would say when I do sit with things that maybe overwhelm me or might get a lot, I kind of go a little bit quiet in myself. So I'm like, I can't voice this until I'm ready to solve it.
Yeah.
So I kind of just need to sit with it, or I might write a lot of things down, go for a walk, read a book if I need to escape it.
Yes.
But I'm quite good now at speaking about things, like particularly with John, my husband. He's a great sounding ear where he doesn't necessarily say, this is how we fix it, or this is what you should do. He'll just listen, and sometimes that's all you need.
That's all you need. How'd you meet him?
We met randomly nearly a decade ago on St. Patrick's Day, of all beloved, gorgeous, romantic days, in a pub in town.
Which pub? You can't just say pub in town.
37 Dawson Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you crossed the road from the Lord Mayor's house.
It was my first time there. Okay. I was 22. There's a bit of an age gap. He was a little bit older, and I was in my final year. He's 76, by the way, for just joining us. I was in my final year. He was working. He was 5 years ahead.
Okay.
And he was up. So he's a Galway man. He was up with his friends, and he was collecting his Guinness at the same time that I was ordering around for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something like, are you having a nice day or something? And I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Jackpot.
And he was like, listen, we're sitting by the fire if your friends want to join us. So I was like, yeah, I'll say it to them. Kind of thought nothing of it. And the girls were like, yeah, let's go over. And that was it. We went on a date 3 days later. Got married 8 years later.
Jeepers.
I know.
What part of Galway?
Ardrahan.
Lovely.
The hurling county.
And the famous hotel. But he's a good quality. Galway, my favourite. So he's a good guy already.
He is.
And does he work, or is he...
What's
does.
He doing with himself? He also has his own business, so he understands the ad hoc hours and the random routines very well.
And is that how you kind of connected, do you think, when you started dating? Were you...
No.
Of course, you were only young at that stage, yeah.
Well, I was just coming out of college, so he's known me since a pre-Sculpted and then post-Sculpted. They're like the two events of my life.
Yes.
But he was actually a secondary school teacher when I first met him.
Okay.
And then he got into business with two of his friends in franchisee of restaurants.
And that's going well, I hope?
Really well.
Okay, so you got married quite recently then?
About a year and a half ago.
Okay. Did you always want to get married, or did you feel it was a construct by the filthy state trying to force us into a situation we don't want to be in?
No.
Or a happy wedding?
I'd be the kind of hopeless romantic a bit.
Really?
Yeah. And my mom always wanted to get married as well. So it was definitely something that I was never like the kid who had the wedding like written out on paper or anything like that. Some girls I know who were like massively into it. But I was always excited at the thought of actually just having a party with all my friends and family.
Yeah. And you did.
It was.
And you did. And was it everything you hoped for and expected?
It was the best crack.
Isn't that lovely?
The best time.
We're going to talk about your third book today, Aimee Connolly, and that is the book that changed your life. Can a book change your life, do you think?
Yeah, I thought that was a very dramatic thing to think about, because it's like, whoa, everything is changing. But I chose one that always stays with me. I think where I am in the course of life right now, with the business being such a big focus and the ups and the downs that go with that. And that was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So it's basically the story of the founder of Nike, or Nike, wherever you pronounce it.
I go with Nike.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I do go Nike. I think it sounds better.
Let's
then
agree on
sometimes
that.
I get
Yeah,
pulled up on it.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's Nike. It's not. It's like Billy Joel, Billy Joel. People are very...
Joel, that's wild.
Yeah, I know, Billy Joel.
Do you say Joel?
I was given that by my family. Lads, Tom... Yeah, sorry. Aidan outside, who's closer to my age, said Billy Joel. Tom is Billy Joel. Sorry, this is the studio.
Joel.
And you say Billy Joel.
Joel.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't say his name that often, but if I was to, I'd say Joel.
Well, I say it quite a lot, right? And I say Billy Joel. And it's an Irish thing. We say it Billy Joel. I know this. I feel stupid now. I'm right.
No,
but if you
lovely.
if you go anywhere else in the world, Billy Joel, when you go abroad and say Billy Joel, they go, what's wrong with you? It's like Janelle Monáe or something.
Okay.
But in Ireland, for some reason, someone said, I'm going to a Billy Joel concert. We said, we all agreed. And then no one said stop until this very moment
Until
on
right
this
now.
podcast. Where you said, enough,
Well, look,
boomers.
everything
or whatever
goes.
we are.
Nike, Joel, Joel. But this was the founder of Nike.
We're all agreed on Nike, so
Yes.
that's okay. This is like the Northern Irish peace process, but with runners.
Amazing.
Okay.
And it was, do you know what? It wasn't, anyone who probably hears this is like, I wouldn't say that's a life-changing book. And it wasn't as such, but it was so comforting to read.
Tell us about it. And what, like, rather than the plot, I mean, obviously, but he was selling from at the back of the van nearly.
Literally.
I mean, tell us about him.
It was fascinating to see his journey, and also like the proper pain points along the way, so that you know, even when it gets really bad, it can get good again, and vice versa.
I love that in a story, but keep going, yeah.
Yeah. So he started right out at the very beginning with shoes. It was with a Japanese supplier that they had 101 million issues kind of along the way. Then went on to Nike. It talks about the journey to kind of scaling into like a proper athlete's choice, and also how they affiliated themselves with sports, and then how Michael Jordan came into play and how that
Basketball
structure
player,
of
right?
agreement. Yes.
Yeah.
That was like a mega franchise at a time where that wasn't the in thing to do, I think, by signing sports stars and actually co-creating with them.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to see the innovation, like the level of technicality in their product as well, which I really associated with from how much I emphasize product on our side. But yeah, I think as a founder, when you're going through the motions and you read something like that and you see the ups and the downs, like I said, but ultimately the up, you know, towards the end and along the way.
As ups go, the Nike story is extraordinary. And actually, in the answer that you've just given me, you went from Aimee shooting the breeze to Aimee Boss.
Yeah.
Because the way you're talking about product and scaling and all the words that you would use when you're looking into developing something and making it bigger. And as you were talking about Nike, I was thinking, gosh, what age were you when you did Sculpted, your product? Like, when did you think, A, I can do this, I want to do this, and B, I'm going to do this?
I actually wish I had a journal that I wrote into at that time.
So you
of
could
life.
answer questions like that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
honestly, when I'm asked this, and I completely get it, because even now when I think, God, that was ballsy saying, you know, I'm going to go for this and I'm going
What
to...
age were you, roughly?
I was 22 when I left college. I was
Yeah.
24 when the first product
That's
launched.
young.
So like it was my whole emphasis when I left UCD. But I don't ever remember that time where I was like, this is it. My whole mantra, which kind of still is a lot to this day, is like, it'll be grand. Sure,
Okay.
why wouldn't it work? We'll just give it a go. Be fine.
That's pretty good confidence.
But I didn't
yeah.
sit there and write out a 5-year business plan to like terrify myself at the thought of what would be, you know?
So you left college. I'm just trying to fill in the gaps. You left college.
Yeah.
You were you still holding on to your work experience?
Yeah, I was
So
working in
you-
beauty at the time, part-time.
Okay, so you were still in there.
Yeah.
And did you see something or someone where you said that? Was there an epiphany or where you said that I could do that and I could do it better?
So I worked on the Mac shop floor when I was 19. So I started working for myself after them. So but just before I was 20. Mac was like the pinnacle. It was like the artistry brand. It was like the creme de la creme. If you got a job there, it was like so cool. Loved their product. They were top of their game. Obviously, a lot has changed in the beauty industry in the last 10 years with different players coming in. But at the time, they were the mega. And it wasn't necessarily that I saw someone else or a different brand doing it. It was that I was standing on the shop floor and someone would come in and say, for example, can I have a powder? And I'm like, sure, we've 67 options. What would you like? So it all revolved around the simplicity of things. And all the while when I was working part-time in beauty, I was teaching cosmetics. So remember I said at the start I wanted to be a teacher.
Yes.
It wasn't actually teaching children, I was teaching adults. But I loved that. I loved getting in and being like, hang on a second, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yes.
Where are you going with those 17 brushes? All you need is this one and this little quick tip. And again, that boost that you'd get from someone who's like, oh my God, I can actually do that. So it was less so about, like I said, a person before me or a product that I was like, this is it. It was more about bringing of products together in education.
You did something that I love in a shop or in business or life where someone goes, wait a minute, you don't need that fuss. Yeah. I love when someone does that. There's a lovely gentle control and knowledge that says, I'm going to save you time and money, and you're still going to look and feel great.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's what everyone wants.
That's what everyone wants. You know, when I'm buying my makeup, no. But, you know, Well, yeah.
You were today.
Well, I was today. You can look at the DVD extras for that on Instagram later on if you want. But, you know, but that's what you mimicked going into. I just loved that story you told because you obviously saw this gap in the market where people are going in buying all these brushes. You said, wait a minute.
Or watching like an hour and a half tutorials, which I'm all for as a form of escapism. But if you think that you need that amount of time and that many layers to recreate it, it's like, you don't. Don't worry about it.
So that's where Sculpted came about and on it went.
But there was loads that I learned along the way.
Yeah.
Like I was like ringing like freight companies pretending to work for someone else so I could get the information because I hadn't a clue.
What?
When the product arrives in, I'd be like, and I'm just ringing from so-and-so. I'm just wondering what port would that land into? And then I'm just wondering would I get that to the storage unit? But you figure it all out.
You spoof.
I did. Yeah.
But that's really
you have to make ends meet.
You gotta keep going. But you weren't embarrassed doing that. Like a lot of people would be kind of going, oh, I don't know, my nerves are gone. You're just like, pick up the phone, let me do it.
Well, that's the irony.
Tell me.
Because I wasn't embarrassed because I wasn't being myself. So I actually am someone who can have a laugh, doesn't take themselves too seriously. I'm actually pretty chaotic, like in general sense, all over the shop, like not tidy, not together, etc.
Yeah.
But I actually don't like being in a situation where I'm like, oh my God, I'm making a fool of myself.
Yeah.
So even when I worked on counter as a teenager, no one else put this into my mind but myself. I used to have this paranoia that I would be deemed not as trustworthy because I was quite young or not as skilled maybe. So I used to pretend that I was like in college. And then one day I remember getting into a conversation with this gorgeous lady and I was 16 and I pretended that I was 19 and she's like, and what are you studying? And I was like, maths. Here's me like in fourth year transition year. And she's like, and how's that going? It's great. And what are you going to do after? And I was like, oh my God, I don't have all these answers prepared. You know, I was panicking. So yeah, I definitely used to do that because I was conscious that it would be deemed a negative to the person that I wasn't a certain way.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't do that anymore, obviously.
Well, actually, funny enough, I don't believe that. But you seem very happy person. You know, you're quick to laugh and you know, self-aware. But I always feel, I worry sometimes about Irish people like myself and yourself that we're quick to put ourselves down. You don't do that too much. You've said kind of, you know, self-deprecating, but not too much. I think we overdo it a little bit because we have to be comfortable and confident as long as we're not cocky.
Exactly. I was going to use that word. No one likes someone who's cocky.
No.
But I think like one of my biggest pleasures is when I meet people and they say, or if someone starts in the team and like the biggest question they get asked from friends and family, what's she really like?
What's she like in real life?
Yeah. Or someone might say she's very normal. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love to be described as normal. And that's the biggest compliment ever. So you're right. There's a very fine line, particularly as an Irish woman or man, where you can be pleasant and grounded before you get, and confident before you get cocky.
You describe yourself as a girly girl.
As a child. Well, here I am, my pig.
Well, hang on. You got a pink phone cover. You got a powder pink cardigan. Can I see your nails, please? Pink. Powder pink. So, I mean, look, pink lipstick, like pink, I presume pink, I don't know, whatever you're wearing to your face.
It's all pink.
It's a lot of pink, right? But do you get patronised and misunderstood and treated differently in a way that maybe somebody might treat somebody else? And is it a gender thing or not? Or are we past that?
I think we're past that. Or else I also think it's a symptom of the fact that I am in quite a female-dominated family life, school and industry.
Interesting.
Don't get me wrong. I'm involved in so many business networks. Some of my biggest confidants are males in business. Couldn't do without them. Males in the team. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have ever felt inferior or deprecated in any sense, because also it's like your confidence on the subject. So regardless whether there's a certain shade or I looked a certain way or I was a certain gender, I know exactly where I'm going with the company and I feel very confident in what we're doing. Obviously, we all have shaky moments. So you kind of hold your own.
It's belief. Yeah. Belief in the product, belief in yourself.
Yeah.
Critical.
And you have to have that.
One of my sisters was at a business network do that you were attending, and she said you were a knockout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she really was impressed, deeply impressed. And
That's so nice.
Yeah, no, and she's in business too, and it's really important for her. She's a little bit, she won't be saying that she's older than you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it strikes me as from talking to her as a businesswoman and you as a businesswoman that it's really important that everyone watches each other's back. Is that true, or is that?
Yeah.
And I'm not really making that a gender thing, to be honest with you. I'm just saying business people, Irish people, that kind of thing.
No, but I think I agree not to make it a gender thing, but there's also some very bare facts of like the discrepancies that can happen between, female founders, male founders, their access to equity, whatever it might be. So I think it is important. But I also think, again, to the Irishness of supporting their own, we're super supportive also of females, which, let's be honest, is not always a common thing in a female orientated situation, because they can be known to be sometimes a little bit begrudging or bitchy. Whereas I think actually we're very lucky here that people really root for their own.
Good.
Particularly when it is a smaller scale.
When you say founders, all that time ago, feels like 100 years ago when Donald Trump was being inaugurated and he had his tech bros. You notice the way there's no tech sisses. It's just tech bros.
Yeah.
And it was Bezos and Zuckerberg. You're laughing. Zuckerberg. And of course, Elon Musk.
I was going to say Elon, yeah.
What? And then the fella from Google, will forever only be known as the fella from Google, because no one knows who he is. Not a woman between them. Like, there's funny founders. Yeah. Did that prey on your mind, or could you care less?
It actually doesn't necessarily prey on mine, but it comes into my mind more so when people point it out to me. So, if I'm involved in something and they'll say, oh, we got questions around, we need more female founders. And then they'd say to the audience, okay, so name them. And then people struggle to. And I think that's sad. I think that's why we really have to back the next generation of females coming through, because there's so many amazing talents and ideas. And sometimes it's actually that belief that stops people from progressing.
When you go to the airport, because you spend a lot of time in airports.
I do. I love the airport.
You hate it, do you?
I don't mind it.
I can't decide what's sarcasm and what's real.
No, do you know what? I travel so much, people are like, God, you must be knackered. But I'm like, I just don't lean into that, because it's not changing anytime soon. So I'm just like, great, I'll get all my thoughts down in the plane now.
Exactly. I have to say, I'm spending a fair bit of time in airports the last year. I quite liked the, sitting down, having a coffee and with your book or whatever. What books would you be leaning towards on the shelves if you were to pick one up from the? I mean, you mentioned crime. Have you any crime writers you like? Are you like a Harlan Coben? Are you a Liz Nugent? Or who are you?
Love Liz Nugent. Harlan Coben is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely one or two good books. Love Shari LaPena.
Yeah.
I find actually I haven't had a miss on any of hers so far. And then, like it says, because you liked this, we recommend this. So I just fall down the trap then of other crime and thriller.
Hard copy or Kindle?
I am really terrified to admit that I am a Kindle goer.
Why are you terrified to admit that?
Because I feel like it's frowned upon, particularly in the book clubs
No.
of the world.
No. There was a time when I was a less reasonable person, and I was a bit judgy about this, but I don't care anymore. I just think once you're reading.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is or
and
where it is.
And for me, like I mentioned at the start, I would go through books at pace, particularly when I get into them. So carrying so many, like we did a quick trip there recently for 2 weeks, and I read 5 books in that time.
Wow.
So like you couldn't be carrying them all.
Yeah, well you can, because I do. But I know what you mean. No, I just can't do Kindle.
There's the judge.
And
that's the judge and jury.
No, it's not. It's just I can't handle the idea of percentages.
No, I get that. Yeah.
24%.
Yeah.
You have read 24%. Thank you, bookman. I want like my dirty old, no, it's not even dirty. It's quite crisp and clean bookmark telling me, oh, right, page 335, 21%.
So you're a bookmark, you don't turn the page.
Oh, no, that's a little desecrated.
We don't have that in common, so.
No, we don't have an awful lot in common when it comes to the actual reading of the books, but we do have common, what we have in common is the love of reading.
But at least I do read, but it's sometimes more than often not on the Kindle these days.
That's okay. We're still going to be friends. Let me ask you about the final question in our conversation. Aimee Connolly is the book the name of the autobiography you haven't written yet. I think a lot of people would love to read your book, but given that you've told us you don't know when you started out in life, I think it could be fiction. But either way, what are you going to give us for a book title?
Do you know what? I've actually had quite a few conversations about actual books. This is not a
Have you been approached to write one?
Yeah, I have.
I bet you have.
Yeah. Nothing that I've kind of acted on. I think, right now my priorities are where the time is.
Sure.
But I think if ever I was to do one, it would have to be the merge of business and beauty in my life, because that is just the two halves of me. So yeah, I think it would be exploring how they connected, and then all the wild twists and turns that happens as you grow a business.
That's what the book's about, but what's it called? The whole point of this is what's it called?
I know, I should be a really creative person. I don't know. I feel like it's like I said...
What?
I said the business of beauty, and then there was like, oh, okay, you might want to... Is
that the name of the title?
Think about
that. Is that what you're giving us? The business of beauty.
I know.
I'd say if we Google that, there'd be 400 different types of people.
That is the problem. Okay.
You could combine it with a baking book. Are you good at baking?
No.
I'm trying to get around to a joke here.
I'm not a cook or a baker.
I had beauty and the yeast, but I'm going to kill that because I'm better than that. Can we? We've got to come up with something. Okay, we'll maybe our listeners will help us here. But what was yours again? Is it so boring? I can't even remember.
The beauty of business.
Yeah. For somebody who was so good at doing their homework, that's
I know.
I'm
actually ashamed. But if it makes someone laugh, throw in your suggestions.
We'll see what we can do. Let's maybe we'll invite you back another time and we'll ask that question and see how that goes. But in the meantime, the beauty of business, or whatever it's called, is in no good bookshops now.
But we'll be on Kindle soon.
Touche. All right, that's where we leave today's conversation. I really enjoyed seeing you, Aimee. And thank you for being with us today. What a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And there you have it, another packed episode with some great book recommendations for you to enjoy, all brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. So shop in your local Eason store or explore hundreds of thousands of titles online at easons.com. Order before 6 p.m. for same-day dispatch and enjoy free delivery when you spend over a tenner. Eason, be inspired.